Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me at Coffee, Cookies, and Books. I'm Judy, and I'm looking forward to bringing a review wrap-up to you of all the books that I've started that I've read since I started my channel. I started it about a month ago, well, a little over that, and I set a TBR to the end of the year, so we'll see how far I got into that. I would really love it if you would stick around, and with all that said, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really looking forward to going through a review of everything that I've read so far. So when I started the channel, I did the TBR to the end of the year, and I had 5 ebooks and 14 print books. And I have read out of that 4 of the ebooks and 6 of the print books. So I've not done too bad. I have decided to shift 3 of the original books that I had on the print selection off of the TBR, and I'll explain why at the end of the video. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to review the ones that I have read. I'll also give you a little bit of a highlight on what I'm doing with my ebooks as well at the end of the year, because a little bit of something different happening there too. Okay, so let's get into them. So these are the 6 books that I've read, and out of the 6 books I gave 2 5-star, actually was 3 5 stars, which is pretty good, 1 4-star, 1 3.5, and 1 3. So nothing below that, didn't DNF anything. It's actually quite rare for me to do anything, I would say, below a 3. If it's below a 3, then typically I will DNF because I didn't enjoy it, and then I won't review it. So I like to keep my reviews fairly positive. That's just me, and you know, it's just who I am. I don't like to say anything too negative about a book, but in my reviews, even from the 3 and ups, you know, I will be perfectly honest with how I felt about the book, because obviously I read the whole thing in depth and really want to bring that to you. I am hoping, I had an issue with my last video. For some reason, the camera's focusing was popping in and out. I'm not really sure why that is. So hopefully this time around that'll work. Actually, maybe it had to do with this. Let me just turn this around. Weird blue light that's on my microphone. So we'll turn that around and see if that maybe is part of the issue. So what I've done is I have everything on my computer as usual. I do like to use my laptop, and I do also have notes in front of me, but for the most part, this review is going to be kind of off the cuff. I do have my coffee. Refresh that every now and again, because that's thoroughly enjoyable. Okay, so let's start with, so the first book that I read after I set my TBR was Hunting Adeline, which is by H.G. Carlton. And I did read the first book a few months back. I gave both books 3 stars. The first book, I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed both. To me, a 3-star means I enjoyed the read, but it had some issues. So with this one here, there was a few things that really was off for me. So this book is split into parts. Okay, now I can't remember where exactly the first part. Let's just see if we can find it here. I think the first part is 200 pages or in around that. Okay. And then there's a second part, and then I think there's a third act as well. But the first part is, now I don't want to try to give too much away, but it's the part where Adeline is in trouble. And throughout it, I found it excessively brutal. Okay, like I understand that it's a dark story, dark romance, And I also understand that there are certain levels to that you have to have in the book. In my mind, though, not all of those have to be inherently in front of your face. There is a lot that you can do to explain what's happening and understand her perils and understand her feelings and everything like that, without it being so ridiculously out in front. And I thought it was overdone. And I also felt that the first half of the book, which is, I am almost sure, because this is like a super long book, it was just over 600 pages. And I'm pretty sure the first half was about 200 pages. It was way too long. You did not have to drag it out as long as it was just crazy. Now, the second half of the book I enjoyed much more. I did also enjoy the aspects of how her character developed to where she ended up at the end, because I felt it was in keeping with the book. It was in keeping with her relationship with him and how that grew, everything like that. And honestly, there was a long point before you actually got to the sex, which was part of what was in the first book, which I thought, again, was way overdone. And in this book, as soon as the sex started, way overdone. So, there was that. The other thing, in the first book, I enjoyed her point of view better than I enjoyed his point of view. But in this book, it was the other way around. It was the weirdest thing. I enjoyed his point of view, especially in the first 200 pages, way more than his point of view. And that's probably because his point of view was pulled back from what was happening, even though he knew what situation she was in. And her point of view was like, here we are in your face, brutal, being assaulted, blah, 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 right? So I think that's why. But, I did give it 3 stars. I would say I enjoyed both books. And would I read from this author again? Because those were the first 2 books I've ever read from H.D. Carlton. Yes, I would read from this author again. So, not all loss. It was okay. All right, so that was that one. Next one was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I gave that 3.5 stars. This book is a book about teenagers, and they're being recruited by the FBI because they have special skills. And when I say special skills, maybe not what we would call investigative skills, but kind of almost supernatural skills. So in Cassie's case, she's empathetic and she can feel things and kind of see things. Is she psychic? I don't know if you go that far, but kind of that idea. And I loved the story. I thought it was really great. I gave it 3.5 stars. I mean, I maybe should have given it 4 stars, now that I think about it, because I really loved it, and I'm looking forward to moving on and reading the rest of the series. I do have the whole series. It came in a box set, so I am definitely going to read it. I loved, this was Cassie's story and how it developed without giving away too much. I loved Dean and Michael. They're 2 guys that are definitely almost vying for her attention, but at the same time, Dean is like broody and Michael is just weird. And the 2 other girls that were in it too, can't recall their names off the top of my head, but I liked their characters. So there's the 5 of them, 3 females, 2 males, and they're a rather unruly, weird group of kids, but I liked them. The one thing I really liked about this particular book was that it felt like I was reading from the perspective of a young teenager. And to me, that just made it so much better, okay? I read in the very first review that I did, which I think was my first video on the channel, I read Red Rising. And what bothered me about that book was that he was 16 years old, okay? And I understand because of the way his life developed and how they were, but I felt that his voice was the voice of a young man in his 20s. It just didn't fit. I had a hard time placing him at 16. Really hard time with it. Didn't mean I didn't enjoy the book, but at the same time, it was like, oh, that was really harsh. Okay, this was real. Okay, this felt like I was in the head of I think she's 17. I think she's 17 or a young teenager. So kudos for being able to pull it off, being able to write it from that point of view really, really well. And I will move on to the second book in the series. And I believe that's in my TBR jar already. So there was that. Okay. So then we have The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. First book of hers I've ever read. Same with Jennifer Lynn Barnes. First book I ever read of hers. This is the first one I've read of hers. And let me tell you, I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed this book. It took me a little bit, because I've never read one of her books before. It took me a little bit to get used to all of the multiple perspectives, because she writes from several. And this book also has a time shift in it. Not a huge time shift. We're talking literally days. So there's an event that happens. You're following what happens leading up to the event, and then you're following what happens after the event. Loved that. I thought that was great. And the after event, she stuck with one perspective, which was the detective's perspective. But leading up to the event, there were 4 or 5. I can't remember. There were, but they were all key to the story. And damn if I didn't love how the whole thing came together. It wasn't like you could not guess the direction the story was going in, for the most part, okay? But I was still not sure who died, because someone dies and you don't know who it is until the very end. So, you know, I like 4 stars. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I know I've read some of the reviews, and a lot of people don't like that multiple point of view, find it really confusing and that sort of thing. But for me, I could totally follow it. As soon as I got used to who was who, which is what, you know, I think is maybe the biggest thing you have to get over when you're reading these, is just kind of get used to who's who and what each person means to the story, and as the story develops. And somebody else said something, because there's a thing in this about the birds, and they're like a old wives' tale and blah, blah, blah. But you learn who they are and why they do it, why it happens the way it does. It's like, yeah, freaking awesome. And I just bought a box set that has 3 or 4 of her other books in it, because I enjoyed this one so much. So kudos to that. Okay, now comes Leviathon Wakes by James S. Corey. If I could have given this book 10 stars, I would have. I freaking loved this book. I loved everything about the book. I loved the characters. I loved the story. It is a space opera. It's the first in a 9-book series, and let me tell you, I'm going to be reading all of those books, every single one of them. It was not a short book. I can't remember exactly. Yes, 550 pages, so lengthy, but there was not a single page in this book that was boring. So that's number 1. Number 2, it was from 2 points of view. So there is the captain of a ragtag ship of characters. I guess some people have compared it to Firefly. I guess in that aspect, yes, but it has a very different feel to why they're in that ship and who they are. And then there is a detective who's following leads on a missing girl that leads him right directly into the path of this captain and his ship. And I can tell you, you go through all the emotions because they lose people along the way. And the end of the story is really, I'm even getting a little choked up about it. But it made me sad. And then, of course, you know, like, the story could technically end for you when it ends, but you know there's going to be so much more. So I am very much looking forward to reading the other books in the series. I think Caliban's War is next. Already purchased that. I'll be going through kind of a book haul probably in a month or so, and yeah, that book's in there. And I was lucky enough to also get the last one in hardback for like $8 on Amazon. They had this crazy sale and I picked it up. So it's so you just have all the ones in between that I have to pick up. But oh my God, I think it's going to be my best book of the year. I mean, I'd be very surprised if it's not my best book of the year. Freaking loved it. Okay. So then we have Break No Bones from Kathy Reichs. It is number 9 in the Temperance Brennan series. Now, Temperance Brennan is a forensic anthropologist, so all of the books revolve around a murder. It's like a murder mystery thriller kind of idea. There are certain cast of characters that have followed all of the books, but I could say that technically you could read them separately because each story is contained in each story. You know, there are some references to her relationships with some of the characters, but then there are always new characters that pop up that she has a relationship that just have to do with this particular story. I gave this one 5 stars. You know, I've read some of the books, some have been 3, some have been 4. This one was a 5. It was one of those ones that from beginning to end, it kept my attention. I had no issues with how any of it was written or how it flowed, because sometimes I'll find in some of her books they might get a little bit too technical, and she goes on and on a little bit about that because Kathy Reichs herself, I believe, is a forensic anthropologist. I believe that's her background. So she has that. The other thing that I guess I relate to a lot, because I'm Canadian and I live in Southern Ontario, and I'm French Canadian. So Kathy Reichs has placed Temperance Brennan, which I believe this is because Kathy Reichs herself did this. She works for 2 different organizations. So she works in Montreal for the, basically it's like the Quebec Police and the RCMP out of like their main offices in Montreal. And then she also, I think it's South Carolina. She works for an organization in Mecklenburg. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's North Carolina, South Carolina. In this particular case, she's out down in the south, but she's not in South Carolina. She's actually working. She does cases for the university where, in this case, she's working with some students. They stumble along a body, and the story goes from there. So it's a really great story, and I love the way that Kathy Reichs writes her books. So, and the Temperance, I love how Temperance Brennan's character has evolved so much, even from book 1, which has been fantastic, and I would recommend them to anybody. I am going to do a feature author about her and her books, and that's going to come up probably in December. Because, you know, I can't say enough about them. Love them to death. Okay. And then the last print book is Not Mine to Keep by Brittney Sahin. And I have, I did a feature author video on her, which I will link below. And this one is the second book in the Costa family series. The third book, The Art of You, is coming out January 9th. If you want to, you can pre-reserve it now. It will be on Kindle Unlimited, though actually all three books are on Kindle Unlimited, and the first two books are on Audible, so you can definitely, great access to them. I read the arc of this book, but then I always get the print version because I do find that while I read a lot of ebooks, I prefer the print books. And that's just, I get so much more out of the story. That's just me. And I have said before, I don't do audiobooks. I actually find audiobooks I get less out of even than an ebook. So, you know, my first choice is print, second choice is ebook. And I don't even go to the audibles. So audiobooks, because it's not for me. But this book was a 5-star for me. I think the first book was 4 stars. I can't remember, or maybe no. I think it was a 5-star too. It's about this family, the Costa family. This is the second oldest brother. So there is Enzo, who was in the first book. He was the youngest. Then there's Alessandra. Then there is Constantine, and there is one sister, Isabella, Izzy, she goes by. I think she's the youngest in the family. And then there was Brianna. Brianna was Enzo's twin, and she died. She was murdered. And the first book deals a lot with that. Obviously, she's mentioned in this book, but she's not key to this book. Now, could you read them individually? Yes. But I would say, yeah, you really should read the first book because the story really does help. But this story isn't directly impacted by what happened in the first book. So, you know, you could just read this one. But this one is like instant attraction. They get thrown together where they have to get married. He marries her to protect her. Her father is a mafia guy in Italy. And there's the whole tie-in to the League. Now, the League is from her Dublin Nights series. And there are quite a few characters from the Dublin Nights series that appear in this book. Okay. Now, they don't appear, not so much in the first book, not in the first book, but in this book, 100%. So I would say I would read the Dublin Nights series first. That is it's a 4-book series, but there's a novella in between. You could skip the novella. You don't really 100% need it, but it is a quick read. So there's 1 book, then the novella, and then 3 more books. I've actually only read I have 4 books. I have 1 more to go. So the very last one I have not read yet. But I know about the League because they've appeared, and they're very much so in the 4th book. It was very strong on that. So the characters from those appear in this book. There is also mention of a character from her, what the hell, the Falcon Falls series. Sorry, it's like brain fart. It's okay. Yeah, from the Falcon Falls series. So the character is mentioned in this book, but not enough that you'd have to read that series. But I would probably read the Dublin Nights series before you read this one. But anyways, the story goes where he marries her, and it's a forced marriage. Not a forced marriage, but he feels like he has to do this to protect her. Somebody tries to kill her, you know, things like that. So throughout the whole book, he's fighting the attraction he had when he first met her and didn't know who she was. So that happens right at the beginning. It's a sweet story. And, you know, Brittney always writes sex in her books. So yes, there's spice, but it is like literally maybe the last 100 pages. Seriously. And this book is like 370 pages, something like that. So but you get him. He nearly, like, he's like dying through this whole thing, and all of her books are written from two perspectives. So it's always it's Calliope is the female, and then Alessandro is that. And I mean, it was great, and I really enjoyed it. So I would thoroughly recommend the series. Okay, so now on to the ebooks. So what I had is I had 2 books from Susan Stoker, the 4th book in the Dublin Nights series from Brittney Sahin, and the X-Hex and Her Soul to Take from Harley. So those were the 5 that I had, and out of those, I read 4 of them. The one I'm on right now is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue, and I don't know how far. I think I'm 10% into that, and I am enjoying it, and will definitely be not DNFing that book, at least so far. It's pretty good. So I'm just going to quickly go over them with you. So the first one was The Protector, and I will put them up over here for you so you can see the covers. Let me take a quick swig of coffee. So good. Oh my gosh, I love my coffee. Okay, so the first book was The Protector by Susan Stoker. It's the first one in 4 from the Game of Chance series. And this one is like insta-love. She gets caught in a snowstorm. He basically saves her, and a dog. There's a dog through the whole thing, which I absolutely love that. And there's no, there is an insta-love, but they do fight their attraction probably through the first 50% of the book. She's running from something, and I mean, like, you know, it's not overt. It's somebody she broke up with, and so on and so forth. But somebody has been stalking her and doing all kinds of weird stuff to her. And the end of the book is a bit of a surprise. So what really kept it at 4 stars for me was just the flow of the story and how it ended. I loved that, and I thought it was really great. So I super enjoyed that one. The next one, not so much. It's from the same series. It's called The Royal by Susan Stoker, and it's book 2 in the series. And this one, I gave it 3 stars. First one 4. This one was 3. It was kind of a Cinderella retelling. And now, in the case of all Susan's books, her characters typically are a little older. So when I say a little older, they're not in their 20s. Usually, they're typically, you know, early 30s to maybe 40, that kind of thing. I think a couple of these guys in the Game of Chance theories are perhaps early 40s. And that's because all 4 of them were in the military. They were special forces. They'd been there a long time. They were in a bad situation, and when they left, when they came out of that bad situation they were rescued from, they decided that they weren't going to do it anymore, and they started up this company, and this is a story about them. So this one is this guy. He is royalty, but like far stretched from it. But it does play into how this story goes. There's, of course, evil stepmother, evil stepsister, like dolty, stupid, evil stepsister who's just useless, completely useless, but thinks that she's hot stuff and the only thing, you know, every man wants her. That kind of character, which I really hate. But, you know, the romance between the 2 of them was really sweet, and I really liked that. I did like their characters. I didn't dislike their characters. I just felt the story was a bit meh, you know, it was okay, and it's been done before. So I gave it 3 stars because I do like Susan's writing, and she does a really good job with the characters, and that's what keeps the story going for me. I have read a lot of her books, And most of her books she does in series, and for the most part, really, really like them. Like her Mountain Mercenary series is probably one of my favorite all-time series of hers. Really enjoyed that. Okay. Then the next book I read was The Inside Man by Brittney Sahin. It is the fourth book in the Dublin Nights series. It is about Alicia and Cole, and they were, so it's like a second chance romance. They knew each other when they were young. She disappeared. He had no idea where she was. And then it all comes together in book 3. She gets saved and she's back, and how they're dealing with their emotion in that, how they're dealing with their emotions, how they came together in that. And I gave it 4.5 stars. I think what pulled it down a tiny bit for me was that, so her brother was the head of this organization that basically goes after the bad guys. And then her Cole becomes associated with this, okay? And but it flows through the whole storyline, so I don't want to give too much away. But there are things that happened when she was imprisoned, because that's where she was, that she does not tell Sebastian and Cole until like the last 25% of the book. And I'm like, I don't understand why she didn't tell them. The explanation for why she didn't tell them was stupid. And she should have told them right from the beginning, because it involved Russian mafia and all this. Like, she should have told them. So it does drive certain elements of the story, but I still feel that she could have written those elements of the story with Cole and him still knowing, and it still would have been fun part of it. So that was why I brought it down 0.5 star. Only reason, because otherwise I thought the story was really great. And then the next one was The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. That's the first book I've read of hers, and I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was an adorable book. It was just a fun read. I probably will continue. I probably will continue with the series, because I am invested in the characters. I'm invested in him and his brothers, and I'm invested in her and her makeshift family, and who all those characters are. So I do think I want to read, because I think it's 3 books. I think 3. So I probably will continue on with it. It was just a cute romance, and honestly, wasn't too heavy on the spice. I'd probably give it like a 1. You know, it had a little bit of sexual encounters, which honestly was enough for me, because I enjoyed how the story flowed. And I liked the little witchy vibe, and the fact that they're both, kind of on that. And just the overall vibe of the story, I thought was really, really adorable. Okay, so that's it for everything that I have read. Now, as I said, what was left on my ebook was, from that, was Her Soul to Take by Hartley LaRue. So I'm reading that. But instead of picking more, what I did was I pulled in, I have 3 arcs I'm reading. So I'm going to read those. First one is Dangerous Lover by Lisa Marie Reichs. I'm reading that one right now. It was a bit of a rough start, but I'm kind of into it, so we'll see how it goes. The other one is Remote Kill by Carl Decker. That is a thriller, and I'm actually really enjoying that one. It's definitely getting interesting. It deals with AI and all that sort of thing, so I definitely want to read that one. I think I'm going to enjoy it, at least so far. And then the other one is Children of the Fog. It's a supernatural horror from C.W. Anderson. I have not started this one yet. It is an arc from NetGalley. I think A Dangerous Lover was also from NetGalley, whereas Remote Kill is from Book Sirens. So Children of the Fog, I will definitely read that one, begin that one, probably after I finish up the other two. So I have those 4 on deck through to the end of December, which I'm sure I will get through. And then if I do get through any of those, then what I'll probably do is I'll probably pick something that isn't in my Kindle Unlimited for now, just to kind of fill the gap on that. Because I do like to e-read along with reading my print books. Now, in print, what I have left to read is, so I have these 5 left to read to the end of the year. You know, these 2 are fairly long, especially the Crescent City one. That's a big book. And what I did was I had 3 others, okay? There was, hold on, because it's on here. Yeah, there was Wool by Hugh Howey, Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio, and The Last Wish from The Witcher, which is first book. Now, all 3 of those are first books in a series. So what I've done is I've removed them and have put them on my series wheel. Because I don't want to start them yet. I have a lot of series, like this is a series, this is a series, this is a series, and this is a series. So I want to finish those, okay? So the next books in the series are in my regular TBR jar, so I'll be finishing those before I start another one. So I put those 3 back. So these are the only 5 that I have to the end of the year. I'm hoping to take this as a Christmas read because I really do want to read that one. These 3 I probably will finish before Christmas. This book, if I read it, I read it, and if I don't, I don't. I didn't care for the first book, but everyone was like, you know, read the second one, read the second one. And I have all 3 here, and I thought, okay, you know what, I'll read it. If I don't love it, it'll go to the secondhand bookstore because it's like, yeah, I'm not going on to the third one. I won't go on to the third one if I don't like the second one. Okay. Yeah, so that is it for today. Now, what I am going to do is I am going to ask that you like and subscribe, and I would really, really love it if you could comment below on any ideas that you might have for videos. Now, I'm not talking seasonal videos. I'm talking like regular subjects that you think I could cover. Now, here's how things are going to go for me going forward. So I'll always do one video on my reviews. Then I'll do a video where we'll pick a TBR. So I don't know which one I'll do first, one or the other. Probably the TBR first at the beginning of each month. And this is going forward in 2025. And then the next one I'll do is the reviews of whatever I've read up to that point. Then the next one I will do is where I'll talk about a particular author or maybe a particular series of books or something along those lines. But it'll always be author oriented. Okay, so it's going to be one particular author. And then I have basically the 4th week of the month. So the 4th week of the month, my idea is to change up what it is that I'm going to talk to you about. So like in this particular case, I filled this in with, I talked about the 20 books that I have on my Kindle, and I talked about the 10 books that are on Kindle Unlimited, and then I talked about the 10 books that are on my Kindle but not in Kindle Unlimited, so these ones you have to purchase. And I just gave a variety of those. So that's kind of what I want to do going forward. But I would like some ideas on what you think I could do. Like, what can I talk about that you find interesting? Like, I know I'm going to probably do a book at the end of the year. That's going to be my 5 favorites and my 5 least favorites. So that's kind of what I already have set up. But what I want to do is I want to try to write out a calendar because I can only do these once a week. I can't do them any more than that because I do work full time. I have my own business and I work full time, and I'm writing as well. So it's a once a week thing, and but I would like to kind of have a bit of a a schedule for myself going forward. Doesn't mean it can't change and it can't fluctuate. And there's always going to be months where there's like an extra week. And that's kind of like those months that feel like they last forever, those 31-day months. So there's always going to be that. But I'll figure it out rolling forward. But I want to kind of set up a calendar for myself. So I would love, love, love if you could comment and suggest on topics that you think would be of interest to you. So I guess that's it for today. And I'm hoping that the video worked out okay and that I stayed in focus throughout the whole thing. But fingers crossed, and I'll see you in the next video.